Hi, my name is Anders, and I'm going to talk about Iommi, named after the guitarist. It's a library me and my colleague Johan Lübke have been working towards since 2014. So it started with a library to do HTML tables. Then it expanded to a library for filtering query sets. Then we added a form library to deal with things Django forms couldn't handle well for us. And then finally a way to assemble and compose these into complex pages. This is going to be a fast and quite shallow introduction to Iommi because I have a lot of things to cover. But I hope it shows the power of the library and why we made it. So the structure of this talk is going to be sort of like a fake live coding session where I jump forward to pre-prepared commits and maybe actually do some live coding if need be. So I'm going to build a little app, which is a discography app. We're going to have artists and albums and tracks. So we'll just start directly looking at the Django models. So I have an artist with a name and an album with a name, an artist, and a year. The year is just the release date of the album. And we have tracks belonging to albums with the name, the index, which is the order in the album, which album they sort of are in, and the duration. I'm cheating here and using character field because it looks a little bit better and simpler in the demo. Yeah. So we'll start off with the most simplest Django app you can think of. I have the models. My URLs are there's an index page that just renders an index.html with two things in it, the content and the title. The index page is exactly what you'd expect. And the base.html is just, it's basically setting up Bootstrap. So we're going to end up here. So that's like the foundation to stand on, right? So this is simple and nothing special. And now we're going to go forward. And first, we're going to install Iommi. It's simple as pip install Iommi. And then in settings, we're going to add in installed apps, Iommi. And there's a middleware too. I'll go into why we want that later. That's the installation. Yeah, I forgot to start my stopwatch. Ha. There we go. So we'll start with a declarative table, because HTML tables are an important part of Iommi and one of the most powerful features. So we're going to do a table. Yeah, I'm going to put all my code in urls.py because it's nicer in the demo. But obviously, you don't want to do that in production. Okay, so I'm going to create a table, which looks, the API looks pretty similar to what you're used to from Django forms and Django models. You have a table that inherits from table, name, artist, and year columns. And then we can send that to our view by creating an albums table, giving it some rows. And then we're going to do a bind call. I'm going to explain that a little bit later. We reload the page and you get a table with pagination and sorting and so forth. Yeah. So I'm going to go back to the bind part here. So this thing will create sort of an abstract definition of a table, but we actually want to couple it to the bind, to the request. Like if you've done sorting, it needs to read that data from the request and apply the sorting and pagination and so forth. But normally you don't need to do this because so you can use these parts like in your existing product, just putting in the context. But Iommi really shines when you go for it fully. So we're going to do that. We're going to remove the onbind and just return the table directly. What happens here is that the Iommi middleware is going to catch this Iommi class and see that it's an Iommi class, and it's going to call .bind on it for you, and then render it. And then we're going to end up with that. I just changed the title because it made more sense. Yeah. And you'll also notice I got a little debug panel here. So I'm going to talk about those later, but the one at the top is jump to code, which is a very nice feature. We just click it and you jump directly to the definition of the table in this case. It's very handy, especially if you're in a new code base. So like Django forms, the order here is significant, so that you need to take care of that. Yeah. So another point we want to see here is now there's no template anymore. So now we can actually delete our index.html and the base.html. We don't need it. We can just use the default one. Iommi comes with the Bootstrap, Foundation, Semantic UI, Water styles by default. So in this case, we're just going to use the default Bootstrap. You can also define your own styling, which we do at our company, where we have a proprietary design system. Now you can also simplify this even more by using the asView function. So we can move this title and rows attributes up to the class meta. So you see this class meta pattern in Django a lot for forms and for models. In Django, normally it means here's a big bucket of values, and Django is going to read from them. But if you put something else in there, no one's going to care. So in Iommi, we like this idea mostly. What we don't like is when you make a spelling error here, you don't get an error message. So in Iommi, these are actually passed as arguments to the constructor of this table, which means that if you make any spelling mistake, you're going to get an error directly. It also means that writing it here and writing it here are actually the same thing, with some caveats, because this is the default value. You can override it later by writing something else, and this will have priority. We'll see why that is actually pretty handy later. And then we just do albums table and .asView to get the view. So then if you look at this, you might notice that this albums table is the name, an artist, and a year, which if you go to the model and look at an album, it's name, artist, year. That's the same. The title is albums, which is just the plural model name. Rows is just all. So it's like all of this is redundant, really. So we'll actually, we do have features for that. So the next step is going to use that feature. So it's going to use create a table, and there's an auto sort of namespace here. We use the same double underscore syntax for separating namespaces as Django query sets, but in Iommi it's like a much bigger, more fundamental concept. You're going to see a lot more of that. So in this case, there's a configuration thing, which means that like auto-generate a table based on some things in this case. And in our case, we want to just pass it the model album and then asView. So that's one line of definition, and you get the table. So that's nice and all, but we would like to be able to create a nicer index page, right? This is not a good index page. We want more information here. So another goal of Iommi is to be able to create a big complex page by taking a bunch of parts and like throwing them together like you want it to, right? And we really want that to be really simple. You should be able to take any type you need and just put it in there. So we're going to do that now by creating a new index page. It's going to look like this. You have a title, some little help, like hello text, and then three tables where the pagination doesn't affect the other tables, and the same with sorting. So the code for that is you create an index page, in this case, and we inherit from page. You create a title. In this case, HTML is a little sort of URL builder feature to make this a little bit nicer. And then you can just throw in some text. If you do, this is going to be escaped properly, but you can do mark safe on it, and it's going to come out, yeah, marked safe as you would expect. And then I create 3 tables with auto model, artist, albums, and tracks, and page size set to 5 because like it's 40 by default, which is a bit much if you have a lot of tables. And the old albums page we moved off to another URL, albums, and then we make a specific page for artists and tracks because just one line. We can go to those, like just go albums, and that's the albums page. We're gonna build a little artist page. Normally you want a page for one artist, right? Which albums they have, and the name of the artist and so forth. So we'll build that by making I'm going to use function-based views because they compose nicer with Iommi, and just I think compose better in general. So we have an artist page. You get the name of the artist here. You just get the object, and you create an artist page, which is the title of the name of the artist, and then what albums and tracks they have. And it's in. You just add the URL definition like normal Django. Then we can go to that artist/du, which is nice and short to type. So there's the albums and there are the tracks. Now, one part, so maybe you've seen demos like this before. I've seen many demos like this. At this point, it looks really cool because you just throw a model at it and you get a table, and it looks really fantastic. And then when you actually try to use the library, you realize that, oh, but if I have to customize anything, I have to make everything from scratch myself. Right? This is a very common use case. And I've been frustrated by this many times in my career. We absolutely hate that. So we really don't want that to be the case when using Iommi tables. So we have customizations on many, many levels. So I'm going to start with cell format, which is a sort of most sort of low level or smallest configuration you want. So I'm back on my index page. Actually, let's go to that index page. And I want this column here, the artist column for albums, to link to the artist page we just built. And you can use the cell format feature. So what we do here is for the column, right? Columns, artist, because that's the name of that column. This is the one we care about. And for the cell, we specify a format function. So this is a lambda with a value, and I just do format HTML and create a link. And then you have your links. But this is an extremely common use case. I mean, making links for cells is maybe the most common thing you want to sort of customize in a table. So there's a special sort of convenience feature for that, which is cell under URL. We changed that. You can see the diff here is we used to have cell format HTML, and blah, blah, blah. And now we've changed it to just cell URL and do get absolute URL. But even this is actually the most common use case. By default, you actually do want. We added the get absolute URL to the model, of course, like you see here. So this is the most common use case, and if you have a column that is a foreign key, you normally want the URL. So actually, we will supply it for you if you do the auto feature. So we can delete that line, and when we look up the foreign key, we see that it's a foreign key, and we know that the model has a get absolute URL. We can check. You'll still get the link. So now I'm going to fill out the app a little bit by adding a bunch of features. Yeah, I'm just gonna make the name column here for all the different things into a link, because that's very nice. So the artists table will link to the individual artist on the name column. We don't know this by default, so that's why you have to do that. Same for albums. And on the specific artist page, we're just going to do the same cell formatting or cell URL. And we have an album page, which is the name of the album. Yeah. So we'll reload that page. You see now you have links that like we had before, but also for the albums. If you click on those, you get an album. See the name of the album and what artist it is and what tracks are on the album. You get these links in various places. So another thing you want to do is have filters. So we want to add some filters to these. So I'm gonna add this. I've added this filter, just sort filtering on the name. So if I write Dio, I'll just get Dio, and if I write I don't know 13 here, I'm gonna get 13. And tracks, I'm gonna write I don't know something, and I get the ones with mystery in the title. And I also have a drop-down here for choosing the artist. So this is, it doesn't look super impressive right now because I don't have 100,000 artists, but this is actually going through an automatically created Ajax endpoint, which goes through the same URL pattern. So if you do access control, you know that you're passing through the same access control code, which we actually use a lot at work, because now we only need to check one code path for permission problems or like auditing. Plus, it's just less code to write. So you get this drop down for free that's paginated and select two nice things. I'm going to show the code for this. So again, we use this double underscore syntax to sort of dig down into the configuration for the specific thing we want. So columns, dunder name, dunder filter, and dunder include. And include here means turn this feature on. So turn on the column or turn on the filtering. So we turn on filtering for name and year and artist. But you notice that I've turned off this field thing here. So that means that there's name artist, but there's no year here, because I turned off the field, which is the part of the form here. But it's still available in the advanced search. So if I switch to the advanced search, there's a query language here where I can use the year as a filtering. And if I expand the show help, you can see available fields are to search for are name, artist, and year. And it supports less than equal, contains, I can do some date filtering. It supports and or parentheses and so forth, which is really nice when customers want something a little bit special. or like your staff, internal staff users. Yeah, so I mentioned in the start that we also have a form library. So they're separate from Django forms. We tried not to write our own form library, but we ended up in that spot anyway, because we needed a lot of features that we tried to bolt on to Django forms, but we just couldn't really do that. So we'll start to use those by adding add and delete features to this view. I'll remove all the filters. Go to add and edit. Let's see where we are. Yeah, so on the index page, on the albums table, I'll add an edit and a delete column, which means I just do columns by the name of edit and the column.edit and column delete here. And then I reload the page. And we get edit and delete columns. Why is it? Yeah. Like that. And then I can click that and I go to the edit page. Again, we have an automatic AX endpoint for the foreign keys. And the edit view is, our edit views are basically a read-only form, but with a delete handler for the button. So we'll show where I install these views or create these views. So I have edit album, which takes the artist and album. I get the object, and I do return form.edit and auto-dunder instance, because I have a specific instance, right, of the album, and that's my form, and I'm done. Same with delete. And these are just function-based views like normal, so I can just hook them in like that. But normally you don't want like on your open internet edit and delete columns in your table, right? So we'll do some very simple naive permissions. So first I'll start with adding a login and logout view that just force logins a user just for the demo, so I can switch between being logged in and log out easily. And then, yeah, and the implementation for those are irrelevant. So the columns and column delete and column edit columns now. Now we do include and we do a lambda callback, and we just do request user is staff. And if you're not a staff user, you don't get the entire column. So reload the thing. And I don't have the edit and delete. I'm sorry, the edit and delete columns anymore. But if I log in with my really bad fake login thing, and now I get them. So this also shows the power of Ioma, where turning on and off a feature is really simple with a callback. So you can have any advanced logic for turning things on and off, and the configuration is in where the column is, not in some other function over there where you remove or add stuff, but together with the thing that you care about. Yeah, we're going to do some drying of this. So now I have this column edit and delete, but these are the albums. But if I go to an artist, there's a list of albums here, but I don't have the edit and delete buttons here because I'm not reusing the same code to create the albums list here and the albums list here. So I should fix that. We're just gonna dry it up a little bit, and we create a track table, and we take all that configuration we had before. We just move it into the class meta, because the class meta is the same as passing it as a constructor argument, as I said before. It also makes it really easy to switch between these sort of different worlds of programmatic and declarative style configuration. And I do the same with album table and artist table. And then I changed all the places where I used this, created these tables before. So before I had tracks was a table, auto model track, and page size 5, and something. And now I just create an artist table with page size 5. And I use exactly those classes in artist page and album page. So now I have the same functionality. I have to log in here. I have the same functionality here as if I go to the artist page. I get the same functionality across the site. So now we have most of the CRUD sort of space, right? We have delete, we have edit, we have a list, but we don't have create. So I'll do a create view. I've just added a create album view here. Click it and you get a create view. Looks basically the same as the edit view. And to make that view, I just do albums create form.create auto model album and then as view. And that's it. Yeah. Oh yeah. And I actually have to add the link, right? So in the album table, I add an actions create album new action, and it's just a link basically in this case. Actors href albums create, and that's that feature. So now we want to do some more customization, and I want to show that I really mean it when I say you can customize the small part. We've seen that with cell format and cell URL, but you can sort of progressively format, sort of customize more and more and more, and still not throw away all your old work. So first we're going to do cell template. So we did cell format before, but you can actually do cell template, which is a more sort of powerful feature. So for this index page, where I'm going to change it a lot now, I removed all the other tables. I only have one table now. It's the albums table, and it's based on the albums, the album model as before. And I add a new column called album art. After equals none means that this table will not try to read any attribute from the row, because normally if you do just to create a column, it's going to try to read, in this case, album art as a property, right, from album, but album doesn't have a property like that. So I turn that thing off, and then I do cell under template to specify template. I could have put that in a file. If you just give it a file name here, it's going to use load it like a Django template, but I inline it here for demo, and I have to create the TD, the table cell, and I create an image tag, and I've already prepared all these things so they're available. And then you get album arts in the columns here. So that's a start. It's a little bit nicer, right? But I want more. So we're gonna use a feature called row template. So I'm gonna customize the rendering of a row, and I'm also going to change the rendering of the entire table. So we're gonna see how that looks. So I'm gonna say the tag for the table is not the default table anymore, but a div. The header, which you normally have in a table, right? I'm just going to turn it off by saying the template is none. I'm going to turn off the tag for the cell, and then I'm going to say for a specific row, use this template instead. And this is a Bootstrap card. Yeah, it's not so important what it contains. And we reload the page. You get this. Right, it needs some fiddling with, so it looks really good. But I think this is an okay index page for a prototype you built in 10 minutes, right? You still have the filtering and pagination like before. before, because it's a full table. It's just have a customized rendering. Yeah, I see your questions on the chat. I'm gonna come to that. Yeah, I'm gonna check what my time is. Oh, I'm very good for time. Cool. I'm gonna talk a little bit about performance here. So I've installed the Django Debug Toolbar, if you can see in the settings. And we're going to look at some of these pages. So you can see here that there's only 2 SQL queries, and it's doing an inner join on something here. And so what's going to happen is Iommi knows that you want to render the artist and the artist here. So it's going to do a select related for you automatically. Because that's what you want. And if it's a many-to-many relation, it's going to do a prefetch related for you automatically. But it can't always do that. So if I go to, if you go to albums, for example, it's going to be the same as this. But if I go to tracks, for example, that's like a little bit slower. And you're going to see you get the normal n+1 Django problem here. So if we jump to the code, so the solution here is to give it a better query set that it can start off. And you do this by doing, instead of auto model, you do auto rows. Right? I still need a model to do the create all the columns automatically and figure out what the title is. But from a query set, I can get the model. So you just have to specify auto rows. And in this case, I just want to do select related album down to artist, because I was using that to build some links on the page. And then suddenly you go back, you reload the page, and it's fast. I don't know if you noticed, but 2 queries with the inner join. Like so also another thing here is we want customizations on all the levels. We don't want just the automatic case to be super nice and simple, but we want the little bit fiddly special cases to also be very nice and simple. That's a very big design goal. Yeah, and then we have another little feature. I'm just going to show it a little bit quickly. There's a menu component in Iommi where you create a menu declaratively like this. The URL is defaulted to the artist / and then you can shoot in some CSS here. Actually, I didn't talk about that so much. And if I go to the index page, you'll see my menu here, because I put it somewhere here. In the index page, I just declared my menu. If you want it on every page, you'll have to do something different, like putting it in a context manager or something. But just for this demo, it's fine. Yeah, I want to talk about a little bit about customization here. So you get this attrs dunder class is something. So in order to do customization here, I can shoot in a specific HTML attribute straight into the thing I want. So in this case, for the entire menu, I look up I go into the attributes, HTML attributes, sort of namespace, and I want to fiddle with the class, and that's handled specially. And I want to add the CSS class fixed top, and I set it to true. And then that's why it's on the fixed top, because that's the name of the Bootstrap style. If I remove that line, both those lines, and wait for the restart, it's going to be fixed here, which is not so nice. I can also shoot in other configuration here, like style, something, or any other HTML attribute I want. So yeah, now comes the sort of pièce de la résistance of this entire thing. So I have a create, I have an edit, I have a delete, I have a listing, I have filtering, I have a menu. All these together, and they're very powerful, and they can be automatically derived from the models. So if I just take all these together and hook them up just right, I can make an admin, a full replacement for the Django admin. So we did. So you install it like so. You create you inherit from the admin class. Well, you don't need to do this, but you want to put your configuration here later, probably. And then you just hook it up. Ioma admin, include my admin URLs. Now I have an admin. I'm just going to log in here. And we go to Ioma admin. And I have an admin replacement with like I have bulk delete and stuff. Delete and edit and create. Yeah, and another cool, the really cool thing I think about our admin is it has the same configuration language as your normal views if you use Ioma, right? So there's a configuration sort of language for Ioma, and it's the same for the admin as for your normal views. And now I'm gonna show why that's really cool. So say I want to change the name here, the header name on this column. Now we can use this pick feature here. I'm just go to pick, click that one, and I can see it's parts under list, supernot, artist, columns, name, and header. I don't care about actually, because I'm not actually going to configure the header. So I'm going to do this. Under display name for this column is foo. I save it. I give it some time to restart. And now it says foo here. So you see that this configuration language is the same. So here's the same configuration as if you created that thing yourself. Columns, name, display name, foo. This part is to make it specific to this specific list. You can also do other crazy stuff, like you can do columns, maybe cell under, I don't know, actors, style, background equals, I don't know, red. Black doesn't seem like a good idea. Artist has nothing to cell. Sorry, I removed the name. So the name column, I just shoot in a CSS style, just poof, right in there. So this means that I have an extremely wide variety of customizations, and I can move these customizations because they use the same configuration language. It's the same set of configurations for the admin as for the normal sort of entire app. Yeah, we have also bulk actions. I'm not going to show them too much, but there's bulk delete. So if I select these, I can do bulk delete or select all. There's also a nice feature where if you do select all and there are multiple pages, we can do select all items on all pages to do bulk operations, like bulk delete or modify. Yeah. So this was a pretty shallow introduction to the power of Ioma, and there's a lot more I haven't shown. But I hope this presentation will spark some interest. It's a pretty new project. We're trying to get the word out. And I hope you will try Iommi for your next prototype or internal tool. Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much, Anders. And I see that you've picked up part of the question host job during the talk, and you were able to see some questions ticking in on Zulip. I'm gonna read the 2 questions from Zulip, and then I also have a few questions if there's time for me. And the first question is from Andrew, who asks, the example includes styling with Bootstrap. Is this something provided out of the box? And is it possible to use with other CSS libraries?
Yeah, so that is supplied out of the box. I supply out of the box. I've implemented a bunch of them because it's fairly easy and it's fun. So I've implemented Foundation CSS, Semantic UI, even though that seems to be dead now, which is a bit sad because I kind of like it. Yeah, Bootstrap, of course. Water, which is a very nice little minimalistic one. Oh yeah, and the Django admin, I implemented that style because it was fun. It's pretty simple to implement a style yourself, actually. I can actually show this a little bit. Where do you see it? So you can actually sort of declare what styles you have, what templates you're going to use. For this class, you want to override some things and change what tag it has, and yeah. The documentation for the styling is bad for now, but there's a lot of examples at least. And we do have, so we use this in production because in production we have our own CSS or design system. So we need to be able to do this for us because we don't use Bootstrap in production. Yeah.
Is it easier to use Hiaomi than the Django admin?
It's easier to do customizations, I think. The customizations in the Django admin are sort of piecemeal, and like there's one hook here and one hook here, and it's like a little bit of chaos, I think. But in Ioma, there's a philosophy and a sort of a path that you can follow, and it's the same for everything. And we really worked on this for many years, so we think it's pretty good. But obviously, this is a new component. It's gonna be buggier for sure than Django admin, which is super old and very polished. Yeah, but we hope to get there. I think we can. I think we can run past them with the right abstractions.
There has been quite a lot of wishes to extend the Django admin over time. Chris asks, I also have a question about templates. What does editing a template look like? I don't think I understand how the inheritance tree works, or how I might add some branding, a custom design, and so on.
Yeah, so maybe you noticed I have no templates, right? I only use the built-in ones. So if I go back to the code, I think, so if I declare in this case, the foundation style, I actually have a base template and I specify my own. You can create your own style where you override this base template, and then you can do whatever you want. So that's the sort of idea. The idea is you should only need to customize some some templates, like the big one with all your branding and all that stuff, and then everything else we just sort of fill it in and make it work. And you say, well, I want this class for an input field, and we'll do it for all your input fields, depending on type.
A little later today, we will have a talk about the MVC pattern, the model view controller pattern, which indeed is something that's close to Django mindset. How can you describe Ioma, how it relates to this design?
It doesn't really. I mean, we reject the entire concept, I think. yeah, we've had a critique saying you're mixing concerns, and I always ask the question, yeah, okay, and why is that a problem? And I never get a reply. So if you have this, actually the answer to this, please tell me, because I think it's more important that things that belong to the same thing are in the same place. So if you have a field, for example, in a form, you want all the customization for that field to be in that place. The HTML attributes, the I don't know, the template if we have one, the validation, everything should be there and not some other place, right? Not I hate the clean under name of the field feature in Django, because if you misspell that, then suddenly your validation isn't running anymore silently, and that's just and it's like you have your field is here, but your validation is somewhere else. I don't think that's a good idea. So we are mixing concerns, and we're saying this is sort of the declarative definition of what our view should be in all its glory, all the details here. And then and that works. We actually think that works very well. As I said, we've been using this in production since, well, I mean, it depends on how you count, but since 2014-15.
All right. And perhaps, I mean, time is up now, but perhaps it sounds like there can be a potential for a panel debate, especially now. Later, we'll listen to both Nynne talk about the MVC, and also Luke Plant's talk about how to approach views in Django. So there's certainly room for different points of view in this.
I think Luke is more on my side. Against class-based views. You know,
that's a direct question for you, Luke, if you're listening.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm also sorry that I mispronounced Iommi in the introduction to this talk. Of course, I thought it was very delicious project, so I just said
no. It's the Black Sabbath guitarist.
That's what we're dealing with here.
And if you read the Wikipedia page, you'll understand why it has a really nice connection to Django.
Oh,
very cool.
Another guitarist, perhaps. Yes. So thanks once again so much for joining us, and you'll be joining us, I think, on Zulip as well after this.
Yeah, as much as I can. Yes.
Yeah, sounds great.